does a Florida middle school teacher also run a white nationalist podcast? We're gonna show you two pictures, here they are. One is of Tiana Dalichov and the other is of Dayanna Volitich. One is a known middle school teacher. The other is a known host of a white nationalist podcast. The question is, are they the same person? Huffington Post pointed this out in kind of an expose. Things that lead me to believe they are the same person is they have the same earrings and the same face.
I was wondering when you were going to get to the fact that they're the same person.
The earrings are kind of a tip-off, but the face thing, that's harder to purchase. But who knows? And also the fact that they point out that all but 2 of the letters are the exact same.
And they're both 25, and the woman on the podcast said she's a local teacher in Florida, and the other one's a local teacher in Florida.
And their tenures that they said at the schools at which they work are the same length. They've been there for a year. It seems pretty obvious. Now the troubling thing, obviously, is if this is true, there is a teacher who runs a white nationalist podcast. And not just that, that on that podcast, she had a guest on, Tiana Dalichov, that said they, the white nationalists, don't have to be vocal about their views, but get in there, be more covert and just start taking over those places, talking about schools and different areas where they can kind of get influence whenever they can. And Volitich wrote back, said, right, I'm absolutely one of them. So if this is the same person who's a teacher, that person just admitted to using their position of power to influence young minds by interjecting elements of white nationalism into a classroom environment.
So let us begin the troubling aspects of this story.
So many.
Okay, so first of all, note the irony of the right wing who had attacked Obama for once going to a school saying, he's trying to indoctrinate the children. Well, first of all the presidents go to schools. George Bush was famously at an elementary school on 9/11 when we were attacked and stayed there for quite some time, reading a book upside down. But look at this. It turns out, now this is the extreme right wing to be fair, right?
Right.
But they're trying to indoctrinate the kids and they say it. She said on the podcast talking about and her and her guests, like, oh, you got to sneak in there, make sure you do your propaganda and get the kids to believe it.
Yeah.
So the reason they say that about the left wing is it's projection. They assume that whatever they're doing and whatever they're thinking, you're also thinking and doing, but it's not true. We'd like to indoctrinate them with things like math.
I love it. Well, there was one moment that I don't have a graphic for where she said that science has proven that certain races are smarter than others. So she's using science.
Oh, well, there you go then.
Wrongly. She also, some tweets from Tiana Dalichov, the alter ego who hosts the podcast. It isn't supremacist or hateful to prefer your own people over others. And then also this one. This is, if you see the graphic below, it is a reference to kind of a teacher manual that says confronting racism in classrooms. And she writes, you know, America's students' education system is designed to enable victimization when teachers are forced to learn about institutional racism and prove it's real when it isn't. I literally feel brain cells dying as I read this bull S. Hashtag Sunday morning. Well, science proves that you actually can't feel that at all. And that you're wrong about it. Yeah, and that was just at a portion of a teacher guidebook simply saying that you should acknowledge that institutional racism exists and also that people are reticent to bring that up because it means that they have to acknowledge their own preconceived notions about racism and their own internal feelings about racism. And that's what someone addressing their deep-seated hatred looks like when they're fighting back against it.
Yeah, I love what she says. It isn't supremacist or hateful to prefer your own people over others. No, it actually kind of is. That's kind of the point of racism, which is my people are better than your people. So, yeah. I mean, it's not like you're not allowed to have tea with people that are the same race as you are or ethnic background. Have at it, Hoss. Go out drinking, do whatever you want. But if you say, I prefer my people over your people, yeah, that's racism.
And when previously she said that they are better, they learn better, certain races are smarter than others. That is supremacy. You're saying that you're superior to others.
let alone when you think that science has proven it and you're gonna teach that to the kids. That was in the context of a conversation he was having on our podcast with another racist. And that guy was saying like, they pretend that people for a kid from Nigeria and a kid who came from Sweden are supposed to learn exactly the same and have, quote, the same IQ. But now, to be fair, Brett, maybe they think the Nigerian is smarter than the guy from Sweden.
Did not clarify the scores. We didn't see the box score on that.
But as I pointed out, and you could go look this up as well, actually Nigerian students do exceedingly well.
So weird that they pick the one that's like in the studies as like, they're doctors, man.
It's almost as if they didn't look up the science.
That's what it is. And you can listen to clips from the podcast and it's just that. It's just people saying what they feel like saying to make themselves feel better and superior to others.
Another one of my favorites was when she said that the JQ is complicated.
Oh God, the Jewish question.
Yeah, I didn't know what the JQ was. I was like, I don't think I've read the JQ in a while. What fashion are they?
There's the EQ and the IQ.
And the GQ.
And GQ is a great magazine, it's a great read.
But anyway, it turns out it means the Jewish question. And I'm pretty sure it's not a question. Two, if it is, it's not complicated. It turns out she's reading some anti-Semitic book about how the Jews control everything. Oh, shocking, I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
Oh, and of course she'd like to eradicate all the Muslims. But I would like to thank the extreme right wing for bringing Jews and Muslims together in America. Right, thank you, we appreciate that.
The thing though, is she's right. She's right in that when you're a teacher in a school, you're in an extreme position of power. And what you say to kids is very important because you never know what kids are gonna hold on to. And it is very terrifying. And the curriculum that she is teaching, she's right that people have chosen that. And it is true that that has developed over time, but I like to say that it's developed in a good way. Like if you look back, there's a viewer who asked me, like from a different country, who asked, how are Native Americans portrayed in schools? And I thought back and I'm like, well, that's changed over time. From you know how they were portrayed back in the old days when it was like cowboys versus Indians, and then it developed into a position where we were taught about smallpox and blankets and diseases and buying Manhattan for a ridiculous sum to someone who doesn't have any concept of like land ownership. We do develop it over time, and it is super important, which is why we have to be on alert when these kinds of things rear their head. And there are other situations where this has come to the fore. In June, the principal of a charter school in New Orleans was fired from his job after video surfaced that showed him wearing rings associated with white nationalism. I don't know if you remember that. He had similarly appeared on White Nationalist podcast. And a former Catholic substitute teacher and field hockey coach in Maryland was fired earlier this year after his school learned that he was also employed by the National Policy Institute, white supremacist Richard Spencer's think tank, and the website altright.com. Like Volitich, he posted on social media under a pseudonym. And the initial response from the school was to confront this teacher that they thought was affiliated with it. She denied it, and the principal backed down. But after pressing the issue, the Huffington Post was able to create some kind of more pressure. And in the wake of it, the alter ego, Tiana Dalichov or whatever, pulled down a lot of her profiles.
But I'm sure that it was a coincidence that when they found the person who appeared to be her, who was a teacher who was now in trouble, that the alter ego pulled down all of her social media immediately.
It's crazy.
Probably a wild coincidence. But what Brett said there at the end is probably the most important for her in terms of whether she's gonna get to keep that job. On the podcast, she bragged about how she lied to the principal, that a teacher had complained that she was indoctrinating the students, and she basically said, "No, I just lied to them, and they believed me, ha ha." They might wanna rethink that. If you want to get the whole Young Turks show every single day, become a member, tytnetwork.com/join. And once you do, you'll be saying,
you know, I'm like a smart person.
Or you might say,
I think it's weird.
Or you might say,
oops.
No, that won't be that one. It won't be that one. It'll be great, trust me. tytnetwork.com/join.